Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in the Australian state of Victoria say that 2 men have been arrested this week, and they are currently searching for 2 more after they allegedly broke into a business and made off with thousands of dollars worth of stolen goods, only to foolishly decide to return to the scene. According to reports, the incident began just before 1 a.m. on February 17th, when the group of suspects pulled up to a liquor store in the town of Portarlington in a stolen white sedan. 3 of the men got out of the vehicle before forcing their way through the business's metal roller doors with a crowbar. Once inside, one of the men began taking expensive bottles of alcohol from the shelves, while the others used angle grinders to cut through padlocks on cases where the cigarettes were kept. The stolen cigarettes and alcohol were then stuffed into a large duvet cover, which the suspects hauled outside and into the waiting sedan before they all drove off. Though the criminals were now in a prime position to make their escape, unbelievably, they returned to the scene of the crime just minutes later. Apparently unsatisfied with their haul, they went inside the business a second time and began to loot more items. By this point, witnesses who had heard the commotion in the store were now out on the street and were calling police. However, the suspects continued, evidently undeterred. What did finally put a stop to the theft, though, was the liquor store's fog alarm, which was finally triggered by the thieves and began blasting out smoke that quickly filled the business. Startled and now unable to see, the suspects fled the scene for a second time. Unfortunately for the criminals, since they had now given police ample time to respond to the situation, it was pretty easy to identify their vehicle. The men tried to race away from the area, reaching speeds of 200 kilometers per hour or about 124 miles per hour, but were tracked by a police helicopter that relayed information to officers on the ground. Spike strips were deployed in the suburb of Grovedale, popping all 4 of the stolen sedan's tires, and the men were finally forced to abandon the vehicle in the nearby suburb of Belmont. 2 of the 4 men were caught while trying to flee on foot. During an interview with local media, the owner of the liquor store estimated that he lost about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of merchandise during the robbery. He says that he wishes his fog alarm worked like it was supposed to and triggered the first time, as it likely would have limited the damage the thieves were able to do. The 2 arrested men have since been identified as 30-year-old Wade Websdale and 36-year-old Shannon Dunford. Each has now been charged with burglary, theft, and dangerous driving while being pursued by police. At the time of this recording, authorities are still searching for the other 2 suspects. Anyone with information about the case is encouraged to reach out to police. Authorities in Thailand's Chonburi province say that a hapless 31-year-old thief did not earn their sympathy this week when he tried out a rather lame excuse on them after being caught red-handed during the middle of a brazen attempted theft. According to reports, the incident took place sometime this week during broad daylight when the suspect, 31-year-old Wasan Kerdmankal, tried to break into an ATM at a gas station in the city of Pattaya. He was equipped with a pair of steel-cutting pliers, a crowbar, and a pair of safety glasses. Unfortunately for Wasan, the crime wasn't exactly subtle, and before long, bystanders called police, who came to the scene and found the 31-year-old in the act. He apparently did not make it very far with his hand tools, as the ATM reportedly only sustained minor damage. Upon being caught, Wasan apparently shared his reasoning for trying to carry out the theft. He said that he had spent all of his money on partying and didn't have enough left over for rent. For their part, police say it's far from the strangest or most creative excuse they've heard in recent memory. Just last year alone, they dealt with a thief who committed 30 thefts in the span of 2 months and claimed the money was to play online video games, as well as a tourist who stole from a convenience store twice and blamed stress in his life. And of course, who could forget the guy who stole his ex-girlfriend's car, only to claim when he was caught that it was a joke? In any case, it sounds like Wasan won't have to worry about partying for the next little while at least. At the time of this recording, he reportedly remains in police custody and is awaiting formal charges. Authorities in the Indian state of Maharashtra say that a man is dead this week and a woman is seriously injured after an elderly couple were the victims of a terrifying attack at the hands of their in-home caretaker. According to reports, the incident took place on the night of February 20th when the caretaker, later identified as 29-year-old Papu Gawali, entered the home of the elderly couple he looked after in the Mumbai suburb of Jogeshwari. It's unclear if Gawali came with the original intention of simply committing a robbery or whether he always planned to attack the couple. But what we do know is that at some point, things turned violent. 70-year-old Sadir Chaplankar was the first to be victimized and was stabbed with a sharp object which left him dead almost instantly. Gawali next turned the weapon on Sadir's wife, 69-year-old Supriya Chaplankar. However, she managed to get to a window where she threw household items outside to the street below and was able to get the attention of neighbors and other residents of the building. Gawali then fled the scene, leaving Supriya seriously injured but alive. Police managed to catch up with the 29-year-old at a railway station in the city's Dadar neighborhood about 9 miles south a short time later, where he was placed under arrest. At the time of this recording, Gawali remains in police custody on murder charges, and the situation is still under investigation. Authorities in southwestern France say that a teacher is dead this week after she was allegedly stabbed by one of her teenage students during the middle of a class. The incident took place sometime during school hours on February 22nd, when the victim, a 52-year-old woman who has not been identified by name, was teaching a Spanish class at a private Catholic high school in the town of Saint-Jean-de-Luz. The town is reportedly a well-known French summer holiday location and is close to the country's border with Spain. According to other students present at the time, their teacher was in the middle of her lesson when the suspect, identified only as a 16-year-old boy, pulled what appeared to be a small blade out of his bag, which was surrounded by paper. The teen got up from his seat and headed towards the door. Witnesses say that everyone thought he was simply going to the bathroom until he shut and locked the classroom door. Before anyone could react, he turned and allegedly stabbed the teacher once in the chest. She reportedly screamed, then fell to the floor. When everyone realized what had happened, panic reportedly set in, with all of the students rushing for safety out a second door leading to another class. While this was happening, the 16-year-old suspect reportedly left the class and went to hide in a nearby room. Emergency responders arrived at the scene minutes later, but sadly, they were unable to revive the 52-year-old teacher. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The 16-year-old, meanwhile, was found by police still hiding in the nearby room. At the time, he was apparently making incoherent remarks and claiming to be possessed by the devil. He also stated that voices in his head had instructed him to kill his teacher. He was subsequently taken into custody. While the case is still very much under investigation at the time of this recording, police have already come out and said that they do not believe the incident was terror-related. Instead, they say that the 16-year-old had a known history of mental health issues and had been on medication for stress. Prior to the attack, he had reportedly seemed calm. The situation is still developing. Officials at a prison in the South American country of Bolivia say that an inmate is facing additional charges after he recently tried to pull the wool over their eyes by dressing up as a sheep in a failed bid to escape the facility. According to reports, the whole thing went down on a cold, rainy night sometime last month when Jose Diaz, also known by the nickname El Araña or the Spider, managed to get out of his cell at the maximum security Chonchocoro prison, where he is serving a 15-year sentence for murder. After dressing in dark clothing and wrapping himself in a sheepskin, Diaz was able to make his way into the prison yard, where he got down on his hands and knees and crawled, doing his best impression of a farm animal. He reportedly hoped that the inclement weather would also help to sell the illusion. Unbelievably, it appears that at least for a little while, Diaz was able to avoid prison security. It wasn't until they noticed that he was missing from his cell that they went out into the yard and began to search for him, where they hilariously found his wool-covered body skulking through the grass. And Diaz was then restrained and taken back into the prison. Unfortunately for the real-life wolf in sheep's clothing, it seems that his stunt is going to cost him. Prison officials say that multiple disciplinary actions have been taken against him in the aftermath, and that new charges will be added to his sentence. If you ask us, all in all, the whole thing seemed like a pretty bad idea. If you're one of those that celebrates Valentine's Day, then for you, this is probably the time of year that you associate with grand romantic gestures. Maybe you're a flowers and chocolate kind of person. Maybe you appreciate a simple but heartfelt card. Or maybe you're going even further and are thinking about asking that special someone to marry you. Whatever your experience, we're going to guess that it was nothing like the situation experienced by a young woman in Japan recently, whose wannabe Valentine expressed his romantic interest by taking a on her bicycle seat. According to reports, the situation took place recently in Fukushima Prefecture when the teenage victim parked her bicycle outside of a subway station in the city of Soma. She ended up leaving it there overnight, a common practice. However, when she returned the next morning at around 7:30, there was a nasty surprise waiting for her. In short, someone had pooped on top of her bicycle seat. Weirdly, reports specified that the poop was not placed or smeared on the seat, but it looked as though the person responsible had actually gone directly onto the seat. Understandably disgusted, the woman reported what had happened to police, who launched an investigation. They were quickly able to track down the alleged perpetrator, an unidentified 28-year-old man from neighboring Miyagi Prefecture. When police located the man, he apparently offered this explanation. He said that he was attracted to the victim, so he decided to target her bike. Of course, in our opinion, this really just leaves more questions than answers. Perhaps the most pressing of which is, how was the victim supposed to know what the poop was supposed to mean? Was it like in the shape of a heart or something? In any case, police say that the 28-year-old was arrested on suspicion of vandalism. Hopefully he learned a thing or two from the experience, because if not, I can't imagine his Easter gifts will be any less disgusting. Authorities in Venezuela's Zulia state say that one person is dead this week and at least 7 other people are injured after a group of armed suspects simultaneously attacked 2 businesses this week, shooting indiscriminately at those inside. According to reports, the incident took place at around 10:40 a.m. on February 18th in the coastal city of Maracaibo, close to the country's northwestern border with Colombia. Residents were in the middle of busy Saturday morning shopping when out of nowhere, a group of men pulled up on motorcycles outside of a local supermarket and butcher shop. Armed with handguns, 2 of them proceeded to go into the butcher shop while one went into the supermarket. Once inside, without a word, they began to fire indiscriminately at employees and customers before running back to their vehicles and fleeing the scene. Sadly, police say that 1 person has so far died of their injuries and another is still fighting for their life. 6 others are said to be stable, though many of this number still apparently remain in the hospital. At the time of this recording, it's unclear what, if any, progress has been made in tracking down the gunman, though authorities have promised that they will be brought to justice. It appears that they currently are at a loss to explain any kind of motive behind the crime, other than to say that it was meant to terrorize the local population. According to local media, the shootings follow another similar tragedy that happened just 9 days earlier in the same city. During that incident, a criminal gang fired shots inside a hospital and threw a grenade into the emergency room. Police say that security forces have been deployed to the area to temporarily assist with the situation. The investigation continues. Officials in London, England say that a 19-year-old man has been found guilty this week after he was the mastermind behind a disturbing so-called prank involving fireworks that led to the death of an elderly woman 2 years ago. The incident began on the night of October 21st, 2021, when 19-year-old Kai Cooper and an unidentified, now 17-year-old boy visited a fireworks shop in the East London suburb of Romford. In court this month, a jury was told how Cooper explained to employees at the store, quote, "I want something that is going to go far and quick," before going on to state to his then-girlfriend outside, quote, "People are going to get terrorized tonight." According to video evidence and witness statements given at the recent trial, Cooper more than lived up to his chilling words that night. However, he wasn't willing to do the dirty work himself. Instead, he pressured the younger teen he was with, supplying him with all of the fireworks and lighters that they subsequently used, and encouraging him to carry out all the most dangerous acts. They proceeded to shoot the fireworks at restaurants and businesses, passing cars, and towards frightened pedestrians. Things reportedly turned tragic when the pair randomly decided to target the home of 88-year-old Josephine Smith, who lived alone at a property on Queen's Park Road. That's when Cooper handed the other boy a megaburst firework and dared him to light it and put it through the letter slot of her front door. The boy did as instructed, and 2 pops could be heard in rapid succession. However, unlike the other fireworks they had set off that night, these ones started a fire. Instead of calling for help, Cooper and the other boy fled the scene. By the time firefighters arrived, Josephine's home had been completely filled with smoke. Sadly, there was nothing anyone could do for her, as she had already succumbed to smoke inhalation in an upstairs bedroom. Following the end of the trial this week, Cooper was convicted of manslaughter in connection with the incident, as well as arson with recklessness as to whether life was in danger. He will reportedly face sentencing in the near future. Unfortunately, reports don't really mention anything regarding the unnamed boy involved in the case due to his age at the time of the offense. They state that he was not on trial with Cooper, though do not specify if the matter was settled previously with separate consequences. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.